everyone, it's Shel from Paper Actio Studio, and here's the first installment of the winning art for the 4 people who won the 4,000 subscribers giveaway. I'm doing them in order of who contacted me with their address first. So the first person that got me their address is Cheryl, and I am making this piece for her. It's going to be a paper painting. And the things that I'm using from what she said that she doesn't have any tattoos, but if she did, she would maybe get a rose. And she said that she likes spirals and leaves. She likes the colors blue, turquoise, and green. So I decided to use those things in combination. I think she said leaves. I don't know. I don't have my notes right in front of me, but I know she said spirals. So I was thinking about this pattern for an art quilt that I saw in a magazine where they had made roses with spirals in the center, basically using negative space to make a spiral in the center. So I figured I would make some roses and leaves and use the colors turquoise, blue, and green, and then have the little spirals in the center of the flowers. So that was my concept. So I wanted to make a neutral background at first. And so I'm using this tissue paper that's printed. It's from Hazel and Ruby. I bought it at Michael's, I think, and I've had it for a while. It's like this huge roll. And I've been using it a lot lately because it makes a great neutral background. It has some music printed on it and some like book text and some handwriting text, different sizes. And so I just kind of tore it up and tore out the parts that I didn't want. It also has some real graphic stuff like hearts and dots and zigzags and stuff like that. I didn't want any of that stuff, so I didn't just use the whole piece. I ripped it up into the parts that I wanted, and I'm collaging it onto a 6x6 canvas panel. That's what I'm going to use for this round of giveaways. These are small enough to mail, and they're flat because they're a canvas panel, so I figured that that would work. So once I have that all collaged on, and I used Liquitex matte gel medium to do this whole project, it's the heavier gel instead of the liquid. I'm going over the whole thing with a thin coat of gesso. This is a student grade. You know, it's pretty thin on its own without even adding water. And then I was thinking about the complementary colors of turquoise and blues, and that would be yellows and oranges. And so I needed a contrasting background in order for my roses and vines to show up. So I'm using some fluid acrylics. The yellow is a high flow, and then the other one is Cad Orange from the Deco Arts media line, which is a fluid but not quite as fluid as the high flow. So I mixed it with a little bit of water, and I'm just doing some dripping down the panel using a little bit of a mister, little mini mister water thing, and spraying that on and then tapping the panel against my desk to get the dripping to go down. And this makes an interesting random background. I like to do this a lot, so I think it's really fun. Then I did put some titanium white over it because I felt like I had a lot of white at the bottom and not so much at the top. And I also added some white splatters, which are real hard to see on the video, but they're there. I promise they're there. And that's again using the high flow. That's a golden product, liquid acrylic. So I set that aside, and then I'm going to start making my paper painting. And so I am using a piece of deli paper, and I'm drawing that pattern of what I think I saw in the quilting magazine. Kind of almost like I don't know, maybe a hexagon sort of, or a pentagon with a spiral in the middle. You know, pretty much everything in nature has some sort of a spiral to it. Have you ever thought about that? It really does. In fact, they've proven that. It's called the Oh my gosh, my brain just went blank. Wow. Well, you guys know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure someone will put it in the comments. Um, you add one and one, and that makes two, and then you add one and two, and that makes three, and you end up making this spiral shape like a nautilus shell. And um, all nature has that shape in it. Some is very pronounced, and others it's inside, but you know what I'm saying. Golden ratio, that's what it's called. Wow, took me a while to think of that. So spirals are very cool to go along with flowers anyway, because the inside of a rose kind of looks like that. So then once I've got a few little roses drawn, I still don't really have my layout finished about where I'm going to put stuff, but I know that I want to try to make some of these roses to see what they look like, because it's just something inside my head and I haven't really made it yet, so I want to check it out, see what it looks like. So I'm using some different types of turquoise, light turquoise, dark turquoise, a little bit of teal, and I'm tearing up those different pieces of paper and gluing them down onto that, on top of that little drawing that I made on the deli paper. And then I'm going to cut it out. The trickiest part of cutting these is cutting the spiral. As you're cutting along, it starts to kind of separate, and then you have a real high chance of cutting off part of it because it gets in the way. And then you're trying to go backwards, and you're like, well, I can't go backwards. So then you start at the beginning and you start trying to cut the spiral on the other side. I mean, you just can't, I know I'm not explaining it very well, but yeah, it's tricky. And the smaller it is, the more tricky it is. I ended up having these leftover innards from the spirals. I thought I might use them, but I ended up just saving them, and I'll use them on another project. Probably like a tag from the desk or something because they'll be on my desk until I do something with them. So I did the first one in the turquoisey teal colors, and then the second one I'm going to do in some blues. So I've got a different color box out. These are my plastic cinnamon roll boxes that I keep all my scraps color coded, color sorted, I guess, not color coded, but color sorted into these boxes on a shelf. And then I always have my scraps for collaging because I do a lot of collage and paper painting. That's something that I enjoy a lot. So this one, I've got some insides of safety envelopes. I really think those are fun. There's so many different patterns in them. They're all blue and white pretty much. Well, there are some black and white ones too, but then I've got some painted deli paper and some jelly prints and just different stuff. And I'm tearing little pieces. This time I'm putting lighter on the outside and darker on the inside. The other one I put darker on the outside and lighter on the inside. I actually think it's more realistic to put the darker on the inside because that's where all the shading comes in from the sun not being able to reach the inside as much as the outside. So, but these are just fanciful, whimsical roses. They're not anything in any way realistic, just enough to show that that's what they are. They kind of look like ribbon roses. Back in the day, I don't know when, I learned how to make ribbon roses. That was a thing. It was probably, I don't know when it was, maybe when I was in high school. Um, you took like half-inch ribbon, and then you went down a ways, folded, twisted, went down a ways, folded, twisted, and it ended up becoming a ribbon rose. And these little shapes kind of remind me of that a little bit. So it's a little bit nostalgic for me. Back in the day when I learned how to make ribbon roses. I've been making stuff my whole life. I've always been a maker. So now I've got the deli paper laying over the top of the design, and I'm trying to figure out what my layout's going to be like. How many flowers am I going to have? How many leaves am I going to have? Am I going to have any budded roses, or are they all going to be open roses? Are they going to be big leaves, small leaves? You know, I'm just basically sketching onto my deli paper, just kind of trying to wing it and figure out how it's going to be. Ultimately, it ends up changing several different times, but I'm getting my ideas as I'm sketching. And I love this mechanical pencil. I just remembered again today how much I love it. It's a Pentel Graph Gear 1000 with soft graphite, and I really, really enjoy this pencil. Because I can just lay this right over the top and, just sketch away. And because of the soft graphite, it makes a dark enough line that I don't have to go over it with anything in order to be able to see it on the other side. So I decide I'm going to make this kind of a U-shaped stem. I guess these are climbing roses because they have a lot of stem to them. And I figured that could be the basis of my design, kind of how it's going to draw the eye from the upper corner down to the, in a swoop to the other side. Something you want to do in art composition is to give the eye a place to start and a place to end. So that's the purpose of my little swoop. And I decide that that is what I really need. So I go ahead and collage that up and cut it out. I'm not going to make you watch all the cutting. I won't even make you watch all the collage because there's a lot. This project took me about 3 hours, 20 minutes to complete. So I cut some of it out so that you don't, I can't condense that down into 20 minutes. So I had to trim. So there's my swoop, and then I'm figuring that my swoop's going to have some leaves on the end, and I'm kind of cutting out some leaves from the different scraps and just trying to figure out what is it going to look like. I know that I don't want 2 roses. It's going to have at least 3 because odd numbers are more pleasing to the eye for some reason. I don't know. It's something about our brains. We'd like to see odd rather than even. Although we are constantly trying to force things into symmetry, actually in art it looks better to do odd. Even in, card making and stuff like that, it just looks better. Just looks better. Seems to be a universal rule. So here I am making another one. This one's a lighter blue, using some lighter colors. I actually have a light blue box and a dark blue box. So I make that one, and then I think, okay, I'm going to make some type of a bud because it's more interesting to have different sizes and different shapes. You don't want everything to be the same. So my bud ends up being dark blue, and then I just start making just some extra paper to cut various leaves out of. I don't draw the leaves, I just collage a little bit of green on there so that I can get those variegated looks without actually drawing the leaves. So then I do some auditioning. I'm laying things out. I'm trying to figure out what it's going to be like, starting with my swoop being the basis. See how it gives your eye the start at the top, and then it follows around that curve and ends at the ends on the other side. It kind of draws your eye in that direction. So that's the reason that I made this swoop. I do think about this stuff. Some of it is by eyeball, and some of it is by design and thought of, what would be pleasing to look at, what would make your eyes happy, I guess. And of course, that's subjective. I mean, what I think is pretty is not the same as what everyone thinks is pretty. But I think there are some generic ideas of things that generally please most people. But of course, there's going to be plenty of people that look at this and say, oh, that's hideous. Why did she make that? It's hideous. But hopefully, one of those people will not be Cheryl, since this is her art. Hopefully she likes it. It's always a little bit stressful to do this. And my questions this time didn't really give me very much information. I thought I would do better, but it didn't give me as much information as I really could have used. But hey, I love a challenge. You guys know that. I'm constantly doing challenges. I like challenges. Speaking of challenges, our videos will be coming out on Friday. That's the day after tomorrow. That will be the pick a stick challenge. So don't forget to come and watch the pick a stick challenge videos. Those are always tricky. Tricky, tricky. So that's where I skipped a little bit. I glued the things down that I had, and I decided I need to make a few more. So now I'm making some more pieces to put on, and I mean, obviously I've got 4 roses there. 4 is not a good number. I need to make at least 5, but then there's more room, so it's going to end up being 7 instead of 5 because I've still got some blank spaces. But I make a really light blue one with a little bit of light teal in it, and then kind of a light teal with a darker center roses. And these are smaller, and I have a tricky time cutting those puppies out. Tricky. I even actually I butchered one of them and had to kind of like piece it back together. And then for my 7th one, I decided to make a second budded rosebud. So then I've got everything stuck down, and I'm giving it a good dry, making sure everything's pressed down and stuck down. And I'm getting out my Faber-Castell Pitt artist pins, and these are a brush pin. I have the big set here that is India ink, which is a permanent once dry ink. So there's these, and then there's the Stampers Big Brush ones that you see a lot of people using. Same stuff. So this ink is blendable for a few seconds until it's dry. So you can blend it with your finger, or you can actually use like a water barrel brush or something, or a wet paint brush, and blend it that way if you really want it blended until it's dry. And then once it's dry, forget about it. It's not moving. And that's the reason that I like them for mixed media, because water soluble media gives me extra stuff that I have to think about. If I use everything that's not water soluble, then I don't have to think about, okay, if I'm going to seal this, is it going to run? You know, stuff like that. You really have to think about that. You can certainly use water soluble media on mixed media, but you have to think. You have to give yourself a little bit of thought time to make sure that you don't just make a big muddy mess. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it again. You have to think about your paper, you have to think about your products, you have to think about everything. So I'm just using different pens out of my set here in the teal, turquoise, blue range to just kind of add some definition to the outer edges of the flowers so that they are more prominent and come forward for your eye to see them. Some people would say, make some pop, but oh, I hate that. I've heard that so much. It's like a song that's been overplayed. I don't want to hear about popping. Popping is for popcorn. Pop, pop, pop. So I'm not going to say it, even though I did say it, but only to complain about how I don't like to say it. See how I did that? Yeah. So then I get out some different greens and go around the leaves. Just a couple different greens to kind of give them a little bit of definition as well, but not as much as the flowers, because I want the flowers to be the thing that you see the most. But the leaves needed to have a little bit. So, and then just a little bit of an ochre color to add a shadow under some of the things and around some of the things to kind of push the background back even more. So if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment so I know you were here. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share if you want to. Why do we keep nagging you about this? It's because of YouTube and the way it functions. If nobody comments or likes my things, then my video will not be recommended to someone else who might be looking for it, and that helps my channel grow. So I'm very appreciative when people do that. So I hope that Cheryl will enjoy this, and I'll be making more art for the winners later. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye bye.